So, welcome to Prophetic Table Talk. And wow, here we are again, and it's so much going on. It's like you have to just really keep up. There's been news coming across since we've got or started getting the program ready to come on. So, we're going to start with today's news, and it centers a lot around. Well, one of the things it centers around is J.D. Vance returning back from the negotiations with Iran not accepting a deal.
Mm-hmm.
So that was news until today. And now we add some more to that news when President Trump says the U.S. Navy will begin a blockade, in fact, at 10 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow, Monday, okay, of ships entering or leaving the Strait of Hormuz after the U.S. Iran ceasefire talks end without an agreement. And what happened? Of course, oil jumps above $100 a barrel as this announcement is made. The U.S. Navy is designed to prevent China, Russia, and North Korea from shipping missiles in or materials needed to make long range missiles. That's one reason for the blockade, okay, about ships going into Iran. Only ships can deliver lots of missiles Iran need to reload and restock. So, also, there was a very interesting thing. There was an urgent call now that's been released, the information between the Saudi crown prince and Trump, and it helped influence Trump's decisions that had been made. Trump had intended to declare a complete ceasefire and end the fighting against Iran for the exchange of an immediate opening of the Strait of Hormuz. But an intense phone call with the crown prince dramatically changed the plan, according to the White House. Okay. The Saudi prince begged Trump not to stop the war. This is a historic opportunity. We must finish the job and weaken the Iranian regime once and for all, the prince said. In exchange for continuing the fighting, the prince offered a package of economic and strategic incentives. Like $100 billion transferred directly to finance the American war cost, full and immediate normalization with Israel after the fall of the regime, direct oil pipeline from Saudi Arabia to the port of Ashdod, turning Israel into a major energy hub, investment of approximately $1 trillion in the U.S. economy, plus $5 billion in American weapons, establishment of a new regional defense alliance with Israel and other moderate countries under the American umbrella, a joint naval force to control the Strait of Hormuz, funding of strategic U.S. bases in Israel, joint reconstruction funds for post-regime secular and moderate in Iran in the end, and Trump announced a temporary ceasefire, not an end to the war. It was expected. So there is a lot going on today, okay? And little to say, that's a big investment in America to keep things going, okay? That's better than sending money over to some guy attempting to fight Russia, coming over here asking us for more and more money. They're paying us now, just to say. But anybody got a comment before we go further into this?
Yeah, actually, this is actually playing just like what we've called it here on the podcast. Is Trump is positioning America to take over that oil route? Period.
Mm-hmm.
This is not just against Iran. This is against OPEC. The Crown Prince has figured that out, and he knows which side he wants to be on. Is basically what this is boiled down to, and he knows if he's on Trump's side, they're going to make money. If he's on Iran's side, he's going to get left out, and they're all about opportunity. So, but now I will tell you this: in everything that's going on, I am noticing, and it might be a little preemptive to bring this up, but I am noticing something interesting. You know, we've brought up quite a few times with a lot of the people from Pakistan and Iran and other places that are coming over here and they get access to all the government funds,
That's right.
I have started noticing that they are beginning to lose licensings that they've held for a very long
Oh,
time.
wow.
And they are having to close specific stores down because they're losing specific licensing. So it looks like this Iran thing is starting to have a ripple effect even more than what I expected. So it's not just with the oil control and things like that. It is starting to have more and more of a ripple effect here in America, even. Um, the oil prices plummeted, but our gas prices didn't change. They're back up again, but they're fixing to go back down again. So I'm expecting oil prices to go back down slower than they came up, of course, just like everybody else is. But we still have no logical reason for oil prices to be as high as they are now.
It's true.
I think once we get this straightened out with Iran, I think Trump needs to step in and do some type of government tax break or something on the price of gas because we have no business paying that price for gas.
Yes. I noticed, and it's odd for Mississippi to see a $5 ticket on gas.
Yeah.
Maybe
I
California, but not here, not the South.
I paid $1,147 for diesel, so I've earned the right to complain.
Wow.
And
Wow.
that was for one fill up of diesel, $1,147. It was normally about a $250 to $250 to $350 fill up.
Well, so let's take a look at the map now. The map we're going to show you about what's happening in the
Yes.
United States is that they are coming to us. The ships have turned out of the Strait of Hormuz. They're not going in there to fill up with oil. They're headed to the United States. This map was from yesterday. Um, it's showing this is a maritime map. You can pull it up yourself. Okay, you can see currently the ships that's in the Gulf of Mexico. Okay, or on the ports in Houston and different places like that. It's coming to fill up with our oil. It's like, oh, wow. So that's bringing the oil business back. Very definitely. Anybody got a comment about this?
No,
Everybody?
this is exactly what we said. They're going to come to America for the oil, and we're going to sell it to them. And we're producing 80% of the oil in the world already anyway. And
It's true.
another thing, this particular map that's pulled up is not showing, but you can actually go and look at it and scroll through it. You will see a lot of them that are being turned to Venezuela as well
It's true.
to pick up the oil that Trump is selling them out of Venezuela.
Yes. Shane, you have the link, I think, where you can see the link. Can you tell what the link is there for the people that want to go find it?
See if I have it. I think I did. Give me just a second.
And because if you want to find this, I don't want to make it mysterious to you. I want you to be able to see daily what's happening in our country as far as economically. Go look and see it's turning, and this is what Trump really meant to happen. And you'll say, well, he's done this, this, and this, but he's a businessman, okay? And so he's running a business. He's not running a greed factory. Well, you may think he is, but this is going to put a lot of money in American pockets.
There we go. So you can see right here, this is the Gulf of America. And you see the trade routes that are coming in, all the ships that are actually coming in from over here. They're coming in, and they're coming right into Texas and Louisiana to pick up their oil. And then at the same time, if you notice, you have this variation of trade routes coming down here to Venezuela as well, picking up oil. You see how it's going back and forth right here? And they're
Yes.
picking up oil here as well. So
Wow.
this is our current situation.
Now that's today's map. Mine was from yesterday. This is today's
Correct.
map, right?
Correct. This is live, actually.
Okay. And you got that from Marine. What's the link to that, Shane?
Marinetraffic.com.
Okay. So that's how you find it. Marinetraffic.com. It's out there for us all to see. It's not a hidden thing. So you can do it by marinetraffic.com. And it looks really good. Then you can go over and look at the Strait of Hormuz and compare the difference.
So you can see right here the different ships that are coming in.
Well, okay, so this is huge, folks, and this is a big thing that's going on. Okay, so we also want to point out that there were several different presidents that had an opinion about Iran. Okay, and let's pull that one up.
Hang on.
And we've
you
looked
said
at their.
the Straits of Hormuz?
Are you going over there? Okay, go there first.
That's where I was looking for, right here.
Okay, you can see the traffic is really slowed down.
Yeah, it's jammed. See it right here? They're all sitting. Nothing's passing. You can see right here.
So, this is amazing, folks. It is. It's amazing. Okay, so let's
you see
go.
they're all clustered. They're all clustered up. So they're stuck. See this?
Yes.
All the clusters.
Oh wow. Well. Okay. Well, so let's take a look at the presidents that have spoken about Iran. We've got a compiling. Here it is. Jimmy Carter said Iran took hostages. Reagan said they're evil. Bush Sr. said they're a real threat. Bill Clinton said they're sponsoring terrorism. Bush Jr. said they're killing Americans. Obama said they're building nukes. Anyway, Biden said we have to stop them. But Trump said okay to the whole thing. Isn't that amazing? Yeah. So all the presidents in the last few years, many years, have been talking about this, but Trump's the only one that's done something about this. Okay? Now, on April the 10th, Amanda Grace prophesied about the Straits of Hormuz and how it ties prophetically to what we're seeing now. So let's pull up that one, Shane, and let's listen to her prophecy.
Hello, everyone. Amanda Grace here. So huge breaking news and a prophetic alert. President Trump has announced that the U.S. will blockade the Strait of Hormuz and intercept ships that pay tolls to Iran. President Trump said on Sunday that the U.S. Navy will begin blockading ships from entering or exiting the Strait of Hormuz and intercept vessels that have paid tolls to Iran after marathon talks in Pakistan failed to yield an agreement to end the war. Effective immediately, the United States Navy, the finest in the world, will begin the process of blockading any and all ships trying to enter or leave the Strait of Hormuz, the president said in a post on Truth Social Sunday morning. Mr. Trump also said he has instructed the Navy to seek and interdict every vessel in international waters that has paid a toll to Iran, and that the U.S. would begin, quote, destroying the mines the Iranians laid in the straits. Any Iranian who fires at us or a peaceful vessel will be blown to hell, he added. Now, I want to read to you what was said, the broadcast I did April 9th, 2026, pertaining to what was coming with the Strait of Hormuz. I had warned this was running parallel to the accounts of Passover in the book of Exodus. In April 9th, 2026, this is what was said. Now remember, initially Pharaoh conceded and let God's people go. Pharaoh's heart was hardened one more time after the concession. Now remember, the Iranians conceded on 4/7 initially, right? Pharaoh's heart was hardened one more time after the concession, and he came after the people of God at the Red Sea. This is where Pharaoh's power and army were completely destroyed, and there was a lethal prosecution that occurred against them and Baal at the Red Sea because they were brought to a place called Baal Zephon. If these current events are running parallel to the Passover account, we may see one more showdown at the Strait of Hormuz, literally or surrounding it. That's what a blockade is. So we're literally watching this unfold. literally or surrounding it. We also may see Iranian leadership hardening their hearts one more time and coming out to challenge the concession and challenge the parameters of the original deal. This is exactly what we are watching unfold. The ultimate battle happened over a body of water at the Red Sea in the book of Exodus, the Passover account, and we're watching this battle run parallel to Passover. Passover just ended, and we're literally watching again over a body of water, the Strait of Hormuz, this literally occur, and this battle happen, and this blockade now ensue. So continue to be watchmen right now. Be in the Word of God every single day. Keep the faith.
It's like, wow. Well, Sonia, you got a comment on that?
I don't. I don't. Mm-mm.
Okay. Well, it's very interesting that we're at the time of Passover, and this is the time of the Red Sea. And at the time of the Red Sea, we're seeing really a challenge from the Middle East against, what's going on. So this is very much parallel to the time and season we're in. That's the one thing I think about what we're seeing. And apparently Amanda's saying we could see a bigger challenge this week to what's going on. Well, anybody got a thought? Okay. So
I do. Wait a minute. It's like I just, this showdown, it almost reminds me, even though it's about oil, it's about water, it's about ships. It reminds me of an old Western where they have a showdown and they're going to pull their guns. You know what I mean? And I know in my heart that the Iranians is not going to give up their regime that easy. So, yes, we're making headway. Yes, there are things that are happening, but I sense that there's going to be another onslaught of warfare that's coming. And I'm just need to get my popcorn and just watch the show, because it's horrible, with what's going on. But at the same, it's horrible for their people. Nobody wants to see death, but at the same time, we have got to have our freedom. We cannot be threatened by another regime. And thank God for President Trump, that he's being used by God. And there needs to be much prayer for him with the wisdom that God needs to give him during this time. And I feel, sense in my heart that something really, really historical, even though we've made history and we are making history, is going to happen. And it's going to be a good thing for the American people. And it's going to be overall a good thing for other nations. And it's just, that's what I feel. So, we're talking about the ships coming in and out and the blockade and everything. It reminds me of an old Western. And I mean, it's like, who's got the power? Well, God's got the ultimate power. And it's a showdown between good and evil is what's happening.
That's really good. That's a really good. Oh, and by the way, before we leave this, if you keep up with Baby Trump has something to say about this too. So Shane will show Baby Trump now. And you got to love Baby Trump.
So I left a 1-star Yelp review on Iran. The whole country, 1 star. And you know what happened? It went viral. 30 million views. More engagement than CNN gets in a year.
Sir, you can't review a country on Yelp.
I just did, JD. Terrible hospitality, cold rice, staff openly hostile, would not visit again. Very concise, very fair, probably the most honest review in Yelp history.
They're calling it an act of war, sir.
1 star, and they're calling it war? Imagine if I gave them 0, which I wanted to, by the way, but Yelp doesn't allow it. Very flawed system. I'm looking into buying Yelp. So I left.
Just say it.
I'm looking into buying Yelp. That's hilarious.
Yeah, you got to have a laugh in all of this too. Don't get so serious. Follow God, love God, and laugh, okay? So, wow, that's a big thing with what's going on. Another thing that happened today, the mayor of New York City, Mandami, I think I got his name right, argues that a racial wealth gap of more than $180,000 between Black and white households stems from long-standing policies, and using it to justifying he's going to expand the DEI programs in New York City. He's going to raise taxes, and he's going to cut down the police. Interesting. He unveiled a 375-page plan and tied it to a broader $127 billion agenda that would restore DEI initiatives and direct resources, okay, to address incomes, household, and education. The plan frames a systematic racism as the central driver of all this, and it seeks a 7 policy area to measure progress, okay? And he's getting a lot of backlash from conservatives and the Trump administration. So there is a 30-day public comment period is open as officials weigh the next step, including potential tax and policy changes. The administration is portraying this effort as a historical reorientation towards equality, while critics prepare it as a really injustice. Anybody don't have a comment here? Mandami is busy.
Well, this is what we expected to come from Mamdani. I'm surprised it took him this long to get out there to that
I am
point.
too.
You know, $180,000 gap between white and Black households. You know, he's making everything about race, because if you make it about race, then you cause division, and that's the whole purpose, is just to divide and conquer. I mean, that's just the oldest thing in the book. I mean, the first person to divide and conquer was Satan.
That's true.
Caused division between Adam and Eve, and then boom, he conquered. Just that simple. So this is the oldest play in the book, and they are using it to the utmost extent. But this is a normal Democrat, liberal means of attack. Period.
Well, Satan's main thing is to attack with
Yeah.
divide and conquer.
And it's funny how Democrats and Satan work so closely together on the way they handle stuff. You know, I'll put it to you this way. I understand there are some people that are JFK Democrats, but at this point today, if you're considered a Democrat and you call yourself a Christian, you got to go read the Bible. You missed something somewhere along the way. And even if you call yourself a Rhino Republican, you missed something along the way as well. You have to be conservative, and you have to have godly values and stand for what you believe, because these people will not stop until they destroy everything that God is trying to create.
That's true. That's really true. And remember, God, you just need to back up and read the account of the children of Israel and go through the steps, every step they went through for God to get them to freedom. That's what we're missing. God takes us through steps to get us to freedom. Okay? And they complained about Moses. Oh, did they complain about Moses? There, I swallowed a few of them too. That's all I'll say. Okay. Then we go to California, and this is just since we have been on, Eric Swalwell, who has had so much controversy over him because of sexual allegations. He's pulled out of the race for governor in the last few minutes. Okay. So, not surprised. Okay. FBI Director Kash Patel announced the arrest of Courtney Williams, a former Special Operations Command employee accused of leaking classified national defense information over multiple years. Okay. She reportedly held a top secret clearance and is accused of sharing sensitive details about military tactics, operations, and procedures with unauthorized individuals and journalists. She's been charged under the Espionage Act. Anybody there? But we need to go to the next one. Melania broke her silence on the Epstein files. Okay? Just to think, she met Lady Melania Trump, broke her silence on Jeffrey Epstein, and cleared her name, and then walked out like a boss lady. It's a walk-off. the walk-off said more than 1,000 press conferences could say. So basically, and then before she walked off, she said it's time that Congress did something about proceeding over the Epstein case. Anybody want to comment on this one? We have to silence and shaking of heads here, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely, honestly, this is interesting that even Melania Trump is calling for total transparency.
Mm-hmm.
So if Melania is calling for it, look, you have to watch her movie to understand the relationship that her and Donald Trump have. It's very, very unique relationship. And if you watch her movie, you learn that their relationship is probably one of the highest levels of respect for each other. And it's completely unique. I've never seen anything just like it. But for her to say that means her and Trump have talked about it, because she didn't come out there and say something that they did not talk about. So if she's calling for total transparency, that means Trump's hands are tied for some reason on this.
That's good. I hadn't thought of it that way, but that's a good thought.
Mm-hmm. Trump's hands are somehow tied on this situation. So,
okay, then she's asking Congress to go after what Congress needs to go after.
You're exactly
intercessors,
right.
That may be a prayer point intercessors need to pick up.
I don't think this is going to be the last time that we're going to hear from her. I mean, I'm sure we're going to hear from her, but I think I really sense that she's going to rise up. She already has, but she's going to be outspoken more. I think we're going to be hearing from her more in the future.
Well, I can agree with that. Okay, so a California man pleaded guilty on Monday to stealing millions of dollars in taxpayers' funds through his participation in a prescription drug fraud scheme. Richard Paul Randall, 66 years old, from Orange County, California, admitted submitting nearly $270 million claims in Medicare California's version of the federal Medicare program. This was going from 2022 to 2023. As part of his plea, he confessed that he and some of his accomplices took advantage of Medi-Cal by exploiting a policy change. So it is really interesting to me how much Medicare fraud is coming out of California. This is not the first time that we have reported on this.
Mm-mm. No, and there'll be a lot more you'll see too.
Okay, and
The
also
two biggest Medicare, the two biggest medical fraud states are California and Michigan. But honestly, I will tell you this from experience: number 3 will shock you. Number 3 is Texas.
Wow, that would shock me.
Mm-hmm. Number 3 is Texas. Your all of your in-network billing from all these little small hospitals and everything across the U.S. all go through Texas for in-network billing. So
wow,
it's going to be a unique situation.
That is. Okay, so the Trump administration is also looking at fraud. J.D. Vance is leading this task force, and he's already identified approximately $6.3 billion in federal contracts tied to 400 businesses that is now being questioned if they're legitimate. This includes 895 contracts across 392 different entities. Many of these companies are now being asked to provide something basic that should have been verified up front, that they're real and an operating business in a physical location. Listen to what I said. If they're real, an operating business in a physical location. They have been given 30 days to provide this information. That is so what? 6.3 billion. And now they say, are you real? And do you have a location you operate out of?
Mm-hmm. See, thank you. This is what I've been complaining about. all these people coming in here and they're getting all these billions of dollars, millions and billions of dollars for free. Nobody double checks anything because they're not an American citizen. There's not a clear path to double check everything. They're just given whatever they need because that's the initiative that was put forth by the previous administration. And nobody double checks anything because they don't have the system to do it. And they were told to help these people in every way possible. And
Wow.
yeah, and they give them, and it's not just the contracts. It's, you understand, the federal contracts here, a lot of these contracts that they're calling contracts are actually loans, and it's federal loans using our tax dollars to loan them money at 1% interest. Now, could you imagine having a house mortgage at 1% interest? Your
Wow.
payment would be nothing compared to what it is now.
Because most of
So,
your payment is interest.
yeah, absolutely. 1% interest.
Hmm.
So these contracts they're talking about are not government contracts where a business is going out and doing work for the government. These are government loans.
Wow. Wow, that's a lot they've got to check into. 30 days is going to be interesting if they can prove who they are, where they are, and what their physical location is. Oh my gosh. Okay, Artemis 2. We talked about this last week. Apparently, the mission has been successful. The crew returned to Earth after a 10-day mission that sent humans further into space than they've gone in over 50 years. That's interesting. They lost the plans. Okay, 4 astronauts traveled around as the far side of the moon and reached a distance of over 250,000 miles from Earth before making their way back. The re-entry alone is wild to think about. They came back into Earth's atmosphere at nearly 25,000 miles per hour, dealing with temperatures around 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and still landed perfectly in the Pacific Ocean. Anybody got a comment?
Okay.
We'll
Anyway,
leave it alone.
we'll
That's
leave that
just
one
the
alone.
report, folks. We'll just tell you they're back.
I'm just
So-
looking at 25,000 miles per hour, and I'm looking at feet per second, and that's roughly like a military rifle. These bullets travel a mile in a split second. That's roughly about 5 times faster than a bullet. And if you pay attention, yeah, it's like, okay, so we're moving 5 times faster than a high-powered rifle speeding bullet. We crash down into the ocean, and yet the NASA stickers on the on the NASA module are still there, while all the other panels are all burned up. So
I don't know either.
I don't know
Y'all
either.
think about it.
I've got my 2 cents on that one. I don't know. My 2 cents.
Well,
I've got my, I've
Go ahead.
got, you know, I was just going to say, Shane's got 2 cents, I've got 3 cents, and I'm just going to let makes 5. You know, I'm just going to leave that one alone.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying.
Okay.
And they had great signal too. The thing is like
Yeah.
the cell reception, the signal they had, but we can't even make a phone call while we're standing in a dollar store because it blocks the cell reception. The metal building blocks the cell reception. I mean, I'm just, you know.
And you know how many dollar stores there are in one area?
Oh, there's at least 6 or 7 on every street corner, and you can't make a phone call from neither one of them. Not any one of them can you make a phone call from. So,
Oh, wow.
I you know, I don't know what cell service they're using, what communication service they're using. You know, I was told that it was Carter, correct, that spoke to Neil Armstrong on the
I
phone.
think it was. Yes, that's
Yeah,
right.
I was told that they were using his landline in order to communicate with them.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's how they did it. They used Carter's
Okay.
landline.
Okay, folks, y'all can make up your own design about this one. Okay. I just don't know what Trump had said something about it, or maybe JD, why he hadn't investigated the funds. I don't know.
That's all it is just a money laundering scheme called NASA. We already know it's a money laundering scheme. I mean, probably one of the greatest in American history, but nevertheless, it's a money laundering scheme is all it is.
Oh,
So let's go to Pete. Let's go to Pete. Pete Hegseth.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's go talk about Pete before we talk about any more about the money laundering
Okay.
going on in NASA.
Secretary of War Pete Hegseth has ended the DoD's outrageous reliance on Chinese labor for critical cloud service, a dangerous Obama-era program that left a decade long of security nightmares wide open. This move ended the massive espionage fears.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody there?
mm.
Good move by Pete, right?
Good move.
It was. He enjoys doing that, but he enjoys doing this stuff, okay? But then we go to Donald Trump. He blasted former allies Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, and Candace Owens and Alex Jones on Thursday, calling the podcasters nut jobs and troublemakers over their comments on Trump's recent actions. Trump published a 500-word post on Truth Social.
Mm-hmm.
And he says he knows why Tucker. You can read the post. I don't think the post is, we have it. I don't think I put it here. Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, and Alex Jones have all been fighting him for years, especially by the fact they think it is wonderful for Iran, the number one state sponsor of terror, to have nuclear weapons. Okay. All four commentators have been increasingly critical of the president over his decision to operate Operation Epic Fury. And this could go on and on and on. On Sunday, Owens called the Trump administration satanic, and satanic Zionists occupy the White House and Congress. She also called for Mad King Trump to be removed from office. Jones has has done a similar thing and called for Trump to be removed from office through the 25th Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, he said a few other things like third-rate broadcasters, and remember, he won by a landslide. Anybody got a comment?
He's spot on. He's absolutely
It is
spot
amazing.
On, because I'm going to be honest with you. The thing about Candace is as she was good there for a while, and then something went sideways a while back. It didn't just recently happen, or else she wouldn't have this issue where she left Turning Point while Charlie was still there.
Right.
So for her to leave Turning Point whilst Charlie was still there tells you something was already happening in the background.
Yes, and that's one that has not been yet figured out. I don't think. I think it's still vague as to what really happened there. I do. Okay, so y'all can read the 500-word post if you haven't already read it. There's a lot in it that he said, and he was off. But he also posted, okay, Donald Trump did. He said, here's the total amount of taxpayers' dollars the past 10 presidents took as salary. Nixon, $1.1 million. Ford, $500K. Carter, $800K. Reagan, $1.6 million. Bush Sr., $800K. Clinton, $1.6 million. Bush Jr., $3.2 million. Obama, $3.2 million. Biden, $1.6 million. And Trump hasn't taken a bit of money from the people. He's not being paid.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So I guess since he's volunteering his time, he can do what he wants to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. Are we ready to, go forward? Has anybody else got more of a comment? Can you not hear me?
Yes.
No. Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Give some help over there. Okay. So we've already talked about the oil tankers That was the other thing that I had, but we've already pointed out what that they are doing. Wow. So let's go to Amanda Grace. Sonia, can you do that?
Hang on just a
Okay.
second. I'm working
I
on that.
think
You go ahead and start the
we're
Amanda
working.
Grace. I'm working with that
I
one.
will start. Okay. This is from April the 9th. Okay. It's Amanda Grace, U.S. Showdown equals biblical points. And we've already played. I'm tongue tied right now. We've already played some of this, but we want to go over some more of it. She talks about the book of Esther is what's running parallel and what we're right now seeing. We're in Passover and we're seeing Passover, is what she's saying. Okay. So the current global events are mirroring what's going on in biblical patterns. And that's one thing we overlook a lot of times. Biblical patterns. God follows patterns. He doesn't just randomly do things. Okay, he follows the same pattern. So we've got to look at that. Okay, so just as Purim has aligned with Esther, Passover seems to be aligning with deliverance, judgment, and confrontation powers going on. So what we see is not a random thing. We see history repeating itself, but it's biblical repeating, which is very interesting. You're in biblical times again, and it's biblically following as God follows. So she also talks about the 911 window timing. Susanna, you want to pick that one up?
Sure. She says we are in a 2 year window, and that equals 9/11 within the 8 day period of Passover. So the dates 4/5 through 4/7 are interpreted numerically as 911. And there's crisis, there's sudden escalation, national and global alert moments. And we need to see this as a prophetic time marker, not a coincidence. She goes on
So
to talk about. Go
let me
ahead.
back up. She's adding numbers, and when they equal 911 on date, she's saying this is a date to watch. It's an alert date. Okay, go ahead.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. She also talks about how Iran is compared to Egypt. She said that just as Egypt was broken at Passover, so shall Iran be. Um, Egypt is an oppressor system, and it's a nation resisting God's purposes. The Ayatollah's fall is seen as parallel to Pharaoh being judged, and the expectation is further shaking. There's a possible release, like hostages in Exodus. She talks about how there is. She says there is your golden apple forming, an attempt to resurrect the Ottoman Empire. The golden age of the Middle East is tied symbolically to historical battle of Albania in 1683, and the golden apple represents strategic global power centers, and a global power shift is could be a possible revival of old empires spiritually and politically. And in the prophecy, she also says that after deliverance, the golden calf incident happened. And it's a warning to the people in the nations after breakthrough comes temptation to idolize. There's a modern application here of trusting the money, power, political systems. But victory can lead to spiritual compromise if not guarded.
That's huge.
Yes, it is. And another quote that she says that we are now entering a 40-day window to Shabbat, Pentecost. This is a time between Passover and Pentecost, and it's highlighted as a critical prophetic transition period. How many of y'all felt that? Have y'all felt a transition going on? I have. And this is all associated with the law, with the Shabbat, and in the spirit, Pentecost. And decisions made in this window are highly significant. She says, come, let us meet. But they were planning to harm me. Apply to an international negotiation Pakistan meeting. And there's warning signs being drawn into the enemy territory, negotiations not on equal footing. And there's a spiritual insight that we need to be aware of is not every meeting is safe. Some are strategic traps. There is a great territorial war in the realm of the spirit over Iran. And the conflict is framed by not just political, but spiritual, the principalities and the control systems, which we're seeing that. There's a parallel of Egypt's spirit resisting release of Israel. And we need to pray, we need to discern, and we need to intercede. Something else that she said, the Lord was calling out Baal in the Red Sea. And I think we've touched on some of that maybe tonight, but the Red Sea miracle, judgment of false gods, the Strait of Hormuz, linked to another false deity system, the sky authority gods. God is confronting false authority, false worship systems globally. And there were 10 plagues, now a 10-point peace plan. Do you see the pattern? That's a direct quote from Amanda. Repeating the numbers 1047 and 911, seen as divine patterns, and it's not coincidence. There's examples of this like the 10 plagues, the 10 point of agreements, the 47th president, timing alignment. God is speaking through patterns and timing. She also went on to say, be on alert and pray, be watchmen. And she says, stay spiritually alert. Do not trust appearances. Amen to that. And we need to focus on the leadership, the nations, and key locations like Florida, New Jersey, and the Middle East. We as believers need intercession, discernment, and awareness of unfolding events.
So this is really, really good. And she's warning us in this, to me, one of the things that I caught is that when we come into a new level of freedom, we've got to watch that we don't build a golden calf.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you have the greatest temptation, when you have a level of freedom, and then when you don't know what to do with that freedom. Mm-hmm. Okay, because the children of Israel, when they built the golden calf, they couldn't see Moses. They didn't know which way they were going. They were free, but they didn't know which way to go in freedom. And that's a big time to build a golden calf. So this is something that really has to be, and we've got to guard the victory that will not lead us to spiritual compromise. You know, when we have victory, we can tend to push the Lord out of the way.
Mm-hmm. And I want to say this just came to me, and I feel it very, very strong. And this is almost like I don't know if it's a warning. I don't know what it is. I'm just going to say it. But I heard the Lord just say this today, where there are Christians, spirit-filled Christians, that maybe not enter into the depths of spiritual warfare that a lot of intercessors do, but they have an awareness of spiritual things. Yeah. To get to, and I heard the Lord say that there are those that say, oh, I'm not worried about it. God's got this. So they get lazy and complacent in their prayers and communication with the Lord and in prayer and seeking God. What's their portion? What do they need to do? How do they need to pray about this? And that's and I hear it very strongly, or I wouldn't be saying this. That's very dangerous. That's very dangerous, because what will happen, you will be caught off guard in an event or something that's taking place within the government, within the political arena, that maybe you had a part to play in interceding for that very thing, and it could affect your own household. So she talks about in this, what I just read, about the discernment, about the intercession, about the awareness of events unfolding. So this isn't a time to be complacent. This isn't a time to be in fear. This isn't a time to stick your head in the sand like an ostrich and say, God's got this. Yeah, God's got this, but you know what? You're not in here taking up space, and neither am I. So we have a part to play, and God doesn't want anybody left behind and not be caught unaware and surprised or distraught about something that has happened when you could have prayed and done something about it that would affect your household.
That's really good. That's a good word. Well, And also she talks about God is calling out the false gods. And come on, folks, these people in Iran don't want to be bound. And so he's confronting these false gods. We've got to realize that. And we've got to realize as watchmen, when God is confronting something in the earth like Baal. So she has a lot to say if you'll go look up the prophecy yourself about God confronting the false gods. That's good. Well, so we go on to Hank Kuhneman, to a word that he released on April the 10th, which was the day after Amanda's word. And he talks about this affliction shall not rise a second time. He declares in his word that Israel will not experience repeated destruction or total defeat. He emphasizes that God's covenant protection and preservation will overtake Israel. And we need to stop and look. God does have a covenant because he set aside the land of Israel. He has a covenant with the land, okay? And he tells us to pray for the peace of Jerusalem, okay? Please read your Bible. It says Jerusalem, okay?
That's right.
But he did set boundaries on the land of Israel. He did say this land would be this boundary. And it's really not fulfilling the whole boundary yet, if you will look up the boundary in the Word of God. So there is a covenant. It doesn't mean that everybody in Israel is perfect. It means there is a covenant. The United States and the people that came here, the Puritans and the Pilgrims, made a covenant with God. It doesn't mean everybody here is perfect, but they made a covenant with this land, with God. So he frames the current conflict as something God is actively restraining. He said there's a covenant. He says, God says there's a covenant with me that preserves Israel and shall preserve them now and going forth. So he reinforces that Israel's survival is tied to divine promise, not human strength. Okay. And their government could mess up, but their survival is tied to God keeping them there. We're making it 250 years from what I believe is people dedicating this country to God, and it's going to be rededicated on May the 17th. And he suggests ongoing supernatural protection over the land that God set aside to be Israel. Okay, so that's something we can definitely look at. Is God protecting what he called to be about? And he said there's a shield around you, Israel, in the spirit realm. And he describes the spiritual covering over Israel as far beyond stronger than any national defense system they have. And he implies unseen protection operating alongside military and technology. You will see through technology. I have revealed plans to bring about a shield. He suggests a modern defense system may reflect divine inspiration or timing. And he blends spiritual interpretation with technology advancement that is happening in Israel. So he's really saying that the technology that is showing up in Israel is God showing them divine ways to be protected. He said, the enemies shall be greatly shaken, embarrassed, and stripped of their power. He predicts destabilization of opposing forces to Israel, and he indicates loss of influence in leadership collapse. And he says that God says, I will plunder them. I will implode the tunnels and expose them. He speaks of hidden systems being uncovered and destroyed, and it represents exposure of secret strategies and underground operations. And great conflict shall arise, even among Iran. So he suggests that an internal instability within the nations, especially Iran, will arise. And he points to division coming between leadership structures in these countries. So he says, watch very closely, for a great wind shall arise. It symbolizes rapid change and unexpected events, and it could represent a national or a geopolitical disruption. And he says that God says, you think it'll be a sandstorm? But is it my chariots, God says? Very interesting. So is God going to send a sandstorm, or is it really his chariots coming supernaturally? That's a good thing to think about. And then he says that God says all hell is being dealt with and all heaven is breaking loose. He presents a dual reality in this, that evil systems are collapsing and divine breakthrough is expanding. He goes on to say to loose the captives, to bring great reversals, removals, and restorations. So when God removes, when he tears down, he always just restores. And he highlights deliverance and justice occurring simultaneously. And he emphasizes the reconstruction of nations and leadership. Then he asks the question that comes from God, which side of the cloud are you on? He refers to the exodus of the cloud by night, of the pillar of cloud of fire that led Israel. It represents two dimensions of God's activity: judgment on oppression and preservation of a covenant people. So don't just say I'm talking about Israel, because the United States was put in covenant by the Puritans and the Pilgrims. So he says, my right hand is victory and my left hand is judgment, says the Lord. It symbolizes God operating judgment and protection at the same time. And it warns against interpreting events that's going on through fear. And how many times are we interpreting things through fear? And he goes on to say, Israel shall be preserved and protected and delivered in a day. He compares current events to Exodus deliverance, and he suggests a rapid divine intervention in the modern conflict. Yeshua will be cried out in the streets. And he's saying that Israel is going to call for Yeshua, Jesus. They're going to call for their one true God. And he anticipates a spiritual awakening in Israel following the deliverance. And he connects the crisis to a revival coming in Israel to recognize the one true God and their Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ. Anybody want to comment on that one?
I do.
Okay.
I want to go back to where he said, which side of the cloud are you on? And we had a word come forth this morning in church about going up to the third heaven and hearing the voice of God. And the Lord said to stay off of social media for 3 days and get in his presence and listen to what he has to say and to hear him, what he wants you to know. And so when you said that, when you read that about which side of the cloud are you on, I thought about iCloud. I thought about the internet. I thought about social media. So where are you getting your information? I know, and I totally agree with Amanda's word about, and I agree, keeping up with the news, keeping up with what's going on. We've got to be aware of that. But can we set aside, even if it's just an hour a day, to put our phones down and get in his presence and stay out of the iCloud, stay out of that frequency and get into the frequency of Yahweh, into the third heaven in his presence, where we can hear clearly what he has to say. What is he saying about all this? And I know we're listening to the prophets, and we need to listen to the prophets. God tells us to listen to the prophets because he reveals it to them. But there are some things that God wants to say to us individually. So, but when you read that, that's what came to me about the cloud, the iCloud.
Wow, that's a big thing. Because most of us, if we would learn to listen to God, just think how Elijah was hearing God when he even heard what the kings were saying in secret and planning against his nation. Well, so build a relationship with the Lord and get in the Word, follow the Word. And when you follow the Word, you'll find out what God is saying and where he is. Anybody else? Well, anything else on economics or money, Shane?
Well, it's kind of been interesting economically, is with everything going on with the price of oil and all the money exchanging hands. We do have a lot of the market has been gradually going up, but it's been a very slow climb. So there have been a lot of people that have basically started securing their investments again in gold um, and silver, which has finally caused gold. We're above $4,700 again. Silver's above $74 again. Um, we're probably not going to see a leveling off of a clear direction with cryptocurrency for quite some time. I figure into late spring, early summer before we get a clear direction. We've kind of been bouncing around. But right now, a lot of these investments are being secured in gold and silver. So the I'm kind of looking for this week to have some clarity on the direction because, like I said, as far as overall, we are moving in a general upward direction finally. So I feel like we've kind of found the bottom with all the stuff
Good.
going on with Iran. So I think if we found the bottom and we're kind of got a good direction to go, we can start moving in that direction. But it's also going to depend a lot on what happens with the Strait of Hormuz and how this actually works out between Iran and Trump. It really is. So there's a lot of unknowns, to be absolutely honest with you. There's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of big investors and big investment corporations that are just literally sitting on the sidelines watching to see what's going to happen.
Okay, that's good. Well, so I will add this. God works in covenant, okay? And so when you keep the fact that he works in covenant, see, we're invited to make covenant with the Lord Jesus. God comes back to call on those covenants. He comes back to call. And so we have our different views and opinions, but if we would start looking biblically where God has covenant, or we would start finding nations where people have made covenant with God over their nation, we can figure out where God is working and where he's going to step in. And one of the things that I would suggest you do if you're interested, there's a lot of information about all the divine miracles that happened in the 67 war. Take time to look them up, okay? That was the war, a 3-day war when Israel took over Jerusalem. I think I'm right on that was the war that they took over Jerusalem. Go look it up at all the miracles that just divine intervention. Simply, not saying everybody's right in there, but simply God came and called on the covenant that's in the land, and they called on covenant. And it's amazing what took place. So before we go, we want to tell you something going on with our ministry. And so if you'll pull that up, Shane.
Yes.
So there it is. There is the new book, The 7 Redemptive Gifts, the right side, the wrong side, and the treasure you've been given on the inside. I actually spent 2 years compiling this book. It's ended up with 284 pages. And so God has placed a treasure on the inside of each of us from the beginning, a unique gift that helps to fulfill our destiny. So this book will help you recognize the 7 redemptive gifts, their strengths, their weakness, and callings that comes with each one, ultimately pointing you to how God provides the grace needed to walk for you to walk fully into who he created you to be. We have had a very successful inner healing and deliverance ministry for years. I became acquainted with the teaching and the very phenomenal teaching of Arthur Burks back in the early 2000s and started using them in our ministry and found much success getting freedom and people free when you understand how God created you to think. And that is in 2 Corinthians 12. If you will look at that, this book goes in depth in it. I've quoted Arthur Burks many times through the book, who is very much the guru on understanding all of this. But we're going to be putting it up for pre-order this coming week for the first time, and we should have it printed sometimes this week or the next. So we're really excited about that.
Looks great, Ruth Ann. Looks great. I love it.
Okay, so we're excited about this. We really are. So watch the website and we'll put it out. If you watch our email or our Facebook or our Instagram pages, we'll have it up when it's available for pre-order. Actually, at a conference I'm going to be at, we're going to put it up for pre-order this coming Wednesday. So there, and we got one more thing we would like to share with you. So as Shane is pulling this up, he was talking about an honor system between people, and that's something that we lack a lot of is honor in our country, okay? Honoring people, honoring our relationships, honoring what people pour into us. So basically, if we would learn to honor, it just opens up doors. Honor is just currency to me, okay? And so Trump attended the UPC fights. I'm not really familiar with fights. You want to help me on that one, Shane?
Yeah, UFC.
UFC. Okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I got the church. UPC is the church. Oh my gosh. Okay. We've got friends in the UPC church. Okay. So yes. Okay. UFC. Thank you. Okay. I went from church to fights. Okay. But anyway, the winner of this particular fight comes over and honors Trump. And we wanted you to see this at the end. So, Shane, you have it there, what he's saying to Trump. Can you read it out, please? Yes. So you see, he says, thank you for doing what you're doing. I needed to tell you this. Well, so that's an awesome honor. So give us a thumbs up. Join us next week. We will be back next week. And share the broadcast if you got questions. And somebody's questioning, somebody's saying, how does Israel get away? Well, Israel doesn't get away, okay? But God honors the covenant with the land, just like he honors the covenant that was made with our land. And we're going to be rededicated back to God on May the 17th. That's excited. And it's no telling what's going to break out. I look for revival. Is everybody good? So be blessed. Leave a comment and have a blessed week. Anybody else?
Shalom, shalom. Bye, y'all.
Hope you guys have a good night.
Good night.